All right, everyone, we're going to get started in our celebration of the Cast of the Under Presents. The actors behind the avatars are sharing stories from their time in that interdimensional nightclub. We are going to be celebrating the decorated run that really changed the way that people think about virtual reality. First, I want to kick it off with the official trailer for the game, and we can take a little, travel back in time to ourselves to fall 2019.
Distinguished guests, are you looking for a little entertainment? You've come to the right place. Prepare to be mesmerized. Prepare to be beguiled, enraptured by the impossible. We've got feasts, fires, fabulists, telepathic cetaceans, and fish ladies. Acts that defy imagination. A venue unlike any other. A venue outside of time and space. May I present The Under. Talk to me, Wild.
Heads up, there's a big one coming your way.
Really? How many on the crew?
About 10. But there's also, well, they have a dolphin. Do you want me to get rid of it?
No. Keep the dolphin.
Sure thing.
So as you can see, a totally normal, ordinary virtual reality game that had multiple components, one being Time Boat, which was a time-looped kind of puzzly single-person adventure. But what we're going to focus on today are the live actors who brought characters to life in the multiplayer hub, where while players could not speak, they could communicate using gestures and other ways of communications. And you'd log on, and for a wonderful period of time from late 2019 to the end of 2020, you might find a dancing and singing skeleton or a cat or a giant crab. And so we've got a number of the cast here today who are going to share stories about what their experience was like working in this place removed from space and time. So I want to call to the stage first, Brandon, Michael, Karlie, and Terence.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hey.
Hello.
Awesome. So just to kick it off, how many of you had worked in VR before?
Ooh, good question. That's like a technical answer to that. I had done a VR project called Chained, a Victorian Nightmare, where I was similar to what Dream was that the RSC just did, where I was a performance captured performer in a space that was viewed in virtual space. In virtual space that was mirrored in physical space. That being said, though, I was, physical. I wasn't in actual VR itself, but that was the first performance that I had done that incorporated virtual reality.
That was awesome. That was our first experience of seeing a live actor in VR, is we went to see Michael Bates perform in Chained, along with Haylee. Haylee was in it too.
Yes.
Yeah. It was great.
So,
but that was our first VR thing.
Had any of you owned a headset before, played a lot of games in the headset?
It's funny.
No, not really.
It's like friends of mine, Ian Forster and Christina Heller, started a VR company back called VR Playhouse, like in 13 or something like that, or 14. And so it was this kind of thing that they were working on. We had a theater company together, and I went on and did weird immersive stuff, and they went on and did VR stuff. And that was just something that was so mind-blowing that I just never just imagined it would come to this level of like availability and just in terms of like what kind of work you could do with it. It was always the kind of thing like did tilt brush and things like that, like, oh cool, but yeah, blew my mind. So that was like our brush. And it was like those tethered headsets that had like a huge computer and stuff, and it was just kind of like, whoa, like computers from the 70s to calculate, things.
Yeah, I'd pretty much only done location-based VR before the Under.
I will say I did do a VR sort of short series. It never got up past like the first episode of a popular thing here called Delusion that happens in real life, but obviously not for the past year for reasons. But they made they did an adaptation a couple years ago, and we did started a VR series of one of those, and that was, so we acted in it, but it wasn't like it was, you know what I'm saying, like they're not doing much of that anymore, like VR shows and movies and things, and it was one of those. So that's my like limited experience working in
With Dasha Kittredge, right? Yeah.
Well, I don't wait, Dasha, were you in that one? She wasn't in the video one.
The VR one?
VR one, right?
Oh,
Am I
no.
crazy?
Delusion.
No, right? Right, Dasha? No.
Never mind.
But she appeared in the stage version of that anyway.
That's
So what was that like, being like, oh, I'm gonna go audition for this thing? And what, like, first off, what attracted you to the project as an actor? And then second off, what was it like actually learning to like use all these tools for the first time?
Just before I answer that, just a quick clarification. Yeah, James Cowan and Haylee and Nichele, also that are part of the undercast, were also part of Chained Victorian Nightmare, just to make sure everyone's included. Yeah, I mean, for this was definitely like, the audition was very much like, it was they wanted us to do like a version of a game show and some sort of like, improv sort of movements like with everyone else, but there was not a lot of information about like what the world was initially. But it was exciting. I mean, I just knew I wanted to keep doing some more work that was VR related, and I was just very curious about where that was going and what that was headed.
Yeah, we came on later in the process. Michael, James, Haylee, and Dasha, and I think G, and well, a bunch were like the core, and then like we came on later, and for our auditions, it was like a lot of like, it was more fleshed out by then, but it was a lot of just, we had in headset training and stuff like that for sure, like for a while.
Yeah, like part of the audition was like just doing improv activities in real life, and then we actually did get to try a headset on and see how we could adjust to the controls.
Yeah, there was like more of a focus on one-on-ones too, and kind of like dropping lore bombs and storified kind of interactions and stuff. So it kind of moved on, I guess, like for the Sundance of the previous year, it was focused on like the stage acts, and then by the time we got on board, it was more like, okay, follow me, immersive stuff.
Yeah, when we first got word of this, we had word from immersive people in Los Angeles, and so we really didn't know what we were getting into. I think I was one of the first people that auditioned for it, and they're like, "Let's do this thing," and I think when we got there, they weren't even sure how to explain it to us. Really, they're like, "There's this immersive project, come on down, and we're gonna maybe be doing some acting in the VR." We're like, "I guess so, sure," and like, we show up and they're like, "Here's the trailer." And I think we saw the trailer and we still were like, "What is it?" Like, we still don't know what it is. And they were like, "Oh, can't you tell it's like this crazy nightclub or blah, blah, blah." And we're just like, okay, but what are we going to do? But, in all fairness, it makes sense because it, is such a new thing, and they weren't really sure how to describe it. But, it was really exciting and strange.
Yeah, I along those lines, like I just remember the first, like there was a like what in a regular show would be like a preview or something, and I was really anxious about like what I was going to do, and like what was the bit going to be, or what was the journey going to be for the people that were coming through, and coming from having done a lot of immersive shows where there's a set time frame and people have paid a ticket and they're coming in, and that was one of the first indicators that this is just a very different experience, right? Because you're going to pay the initial upfront cost of the game, and then you're going to be able to exist in the world, and you're going to be able to return with less friction than you would in an immersive show. And there was also something just nice about just being present or existent in the world without the pressure of having to, do something like, that was more content oriented. There was something that was a little, stretchy about the way that you could be together with players in the game.
Awesome. So here comes our next parlor trick. Okay, we're going to rotate the board and bring up James, Sophie, G, and Whitton. But thank you so much, Brandon, Michael, Terence, and Karlie. And if you guys want to pipe in later, we can also bring you back. But let's see if we can, essentially, we've got 14 actors that we'd like to hear from today. So we're going to see if we can break Zoom. Sorry, Jacob.
Yeah.
So the next thing that I want to talk about is a little bit about like the back-end controls for the actors, like what kind of superpowers you have that the players maybe don't know about or aren't aware of. Like, what can you see and do that the players can't?
Well, we do bring in scenery and props, and we can sort of manipulate the world in a way that helps us build stories. So as if a player would have to travel all the way across the Under to get from one place to another, we could teleport them, or we could spawn props that helped us with our story. And we did have a way of keeping track of different players just so that we could build relationships with people that came in more often, and we would learn who they were and their movements and the stories that we did with them, and could build on top of that. So it was a challenge sometimes trying to keep the story going while also bringing things from the world up and down and getting everything seamless. But it was great. I felt very supported by the Tender Claws crew and what they gave us.
G, are you trying to say something? You're on mute.
You're muted.
No, I was just agreeing. I was like, yep,
Yeah.
he answered it.
Yeah, I agree with that. Definitely answered it. And it was just, there's so much like multitasking. In the beginning, I remember being like, oh my gosh, am I ever going to be able to do this? This is crazy. I mean, I was really intimidated by it because I was like, I'm not a gamer. I don't know what I'm doing. But you get in there and you start it, and that's where it really helped, with improv and immersive acting. Like, there's always ways to cover those things when you're like figuring out the controls. But it's so much fun. The teleporting option. I loved teleporting players. One of my characters, Stella, that is something I like to do a lot.
So wait, so each of you maybe has like a favorite superpower that you like to kind of keep in your back pocket and then use at the right time. So what are your other like favorite superpowers, James, G, Whitton?
Well, there was a set of props that really lent itself to a good time and having fun. It was sort of more like a party-based one, and I found that I felt right at home in that. I would use that a lot.
Scratch.
I really enjoyed being invisible. Like, just the fact that we could be invisible and soundless, and just you could be there lurking. Indeed, one of my characters, the AI, is invisible and would talk. Yes, the AI, the invisible characters are really fun because they're just sort of a voice. And I know G has Alexo, and I also had Cheese God, which literally was just a voice emanating from the cheese mask and demanded cheese. And that was probably some of the most fun. But yeah, being invisible was probably the thing that I actually ended up using the most to guide players, to storytell, to kind of play around with the expectations and be like, oh no, there is something here. Is there? Maybe not. So it was a very fun superpower.
I'm with Whitton on invisibility. I liked invisibility because this was very, 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 very early on, like the first couple of weeks or months of the Under. We were supposed to like do our own shows, do our own things. And I like to break rules. Everybody else here, I would say, is like a really good actor. They come from acting backgrounds. They're giving you Charles Dickens level of storytelling. They're all doing the like thing. And I came in kind of from like the hop the fence through the back door. And they were like, and here's the whatever Geneviève is. And I was like, yeah, that's me. And so I like to go in and watch other people's shows or things that they were doing, and then like screw with them. Michael was my very first one. He early on was doing these tours through the under, and I just like would show up as different characters and just like uproot it and be like, this is what we're doing now, and see if they could essentially handle deviating from what they were planning on doing. I did it with James quite a bit. And this was like, yeah, I came in, the very first one was I was Michael's mom, and it was just like, oh, honey, like, and I just kind of insulted him the whole time. So I'm just like, you're doing great, sweetie. This is why you're single. And so it was way more fun so I'm with Whitton on like invisibility, man. Invisibility is yum, 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 yum. So that's my answer.
Oh my gosh, hilarious. So one thing that I think struck a lot of people when the under first came out was the fact that they didn't think you were human, like they didn't think you were live. So what was that like the first time you encounter someone and they're like, oh my gosh, wait, you're not like pre-recorded material?
I mean, I think, oh, go ahead, James.
Oh, no, all you.
Oh, I was gonna say, I think at first people didn't know. They were very obsessed with trying to figure out what we were, I think, and what that meant. And this also leads into a larger discussion of like bodily autonomy in a virtual space, right? And how to handle that. But I think at first everyone was it was sort of this completely new thing. And we had a lot of people just being like, what can we do here? What is okay? Is this theater? Is it like an NPC in a game, but better? What is this? And I think we were trying to figure that out too. So yeah, it was interesting when people did start to realize, oh, these are real people in real time. Because we did have the recorded stage acts from Piehole that I think when people saw us, and because we used some of those avatars at first, they were like, oh, maybe the pre-record, those are not real. And then they were very sad to find out that those were pre-recorded. But yeah, it was a really interesting journey, I think, from this kind of nascent, what is this curiosity, to holy fucking shit, this is amazing. and the sort of endless possibilities that it brings.
I remember one time early on, because in the beginning too, we had, as G was saying, our acts were more shaped, and then as time went on, they sort of got looser and a little bit more wild. But in the beginning, I was on stage doing "Don't Push the Button," which a few of us do, and it's a really fun leading that. But it's a game show, and it feels like tight, and it feels like it's pre-recorded, and so I had an audience member once just looking up, and they decided to take a beer bottle and throw it at my avatar, and I reached up and I caught it in midair and went, "Ha! Didn't expect I was gonna do that, did you?" And they were like, "Oh my god, you're a real person." It was a fun time, yeah.
So speaking of that, as an actor in the under, you can talk, but the players can't. So how do you communicate?
Ooh, I'll so I think because we're all from some form of performance, and we've all probably had some version of a mask class, or just like playing in improv or whatever, you really learn to pay attention to people's bodies and what they are doing, because you can even just, if a player's standing there and their hands are by their side and they're doing like a head tilt, they're listening. You can tell based on like just like this, they're listening. Maybe they're a little bit confused. If their hands are up, they're usually like ready to play, but they also might be new. You can tell if their hands are just kind of up like this, you're like, this person's probably new. But you just really learn to pay attention to the subtlety of movement on them, and if they come close to you, if they stand far away. It's all of those little things that I think actors, and particularly this group, have to learn how to pay attention to for like human communication. When there are obstacles, what do you do? And we all found our own way of communicating and understanding. It's like the human nature, man. If there's a problem, we try to solve it. That's kind of my 2 cents on that.
Yeah,
But
and
also,
it was.
yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No. Sorry, I interrupted you last time. You go.
It came from both sides too. Like I remember audience members finding ways to talk. They would take a spell that sort of lingered a little bit, and they would start drawing letters in the air and spelling out, or they would use props and spell for us. And then it was a language that developed on both sides, talking to them and finding out, what questions I could ask. If I wanted to ask a question, I maybe had to phrase it as a yes or no answer. Yeah, that engineer book that everybody grabbed. Yeah, that was awesome. And when they turned that into a Slurpee cup, blew my mind. But but I think there was a need to communicate on both sides. And as G was saying, that need overcomes an obstacle, and we find a way around the obstacles that we're given.
The players also on their own, created this whole Discord community around the under, and it blew all of our minds. I think none of us expected that. They also came up with totems so that we would know we actually knew who you all were because we can see your usernames. But they didn't know that, I think. And so they created totems to communicate who each one was so they could remember each other. It's like, oh, I'm Golden Salt Shaker, I'm this and that. And again, another way of kind of communicating. But also I think you'd be surprised just how effective physical gestures can be at communication. I had a character, Masha, who was a psychic, and I promise you, doing psychic readings with someone who can't talk to you with faces that don't express anything is a really interesting prospect. But as it went on, you got, someone is sort of this, there's little responses, and you actually do start reading them. I had a lovely experience where someone was like, I was doing a reading and they were like running around very excited. And I said, oh, you're a person who doesn't like to play by the rules. You've got to always be doing your own thing. And then later on the Discord, I was creeping on it, and the person was like, oh my God, Masha just said exactly who I am. There you go.
So yeah,
pretty phenomenal.
So building on that, Gigi, were you going to say something?
I did actually. I hope it, because here, let me get on like a little preachy soapbox real quick. For me, it was it's like another solid proof that humans, we can all actually survive together, which I know sounds like very, very preachy, but like when I used to be in the circus, and my first boyfriend, he didn't speak any English. And what we would do was draw pictures to each other. We like had to figure out how to communicate, because we're like, if we're gonna like bone down, we should probably talk to each other. And this was pre smartphone, so we couldn't like Google anything. We're on the train in the middle of nowhere, and so we figured out a way to communicate through drawing pictures. And this kind of reminded me of that, of like, it gives me hope that people all over the world of different cultures and social backgrounds and socioeconomic backgrounds we can, if you want to, communicate and understand and work together. And it really gave me like, we can do it, because we're all heading towards Ready Player One living anyway. And so I was like, we can do it, everyone. Like, we can work together if we want. We don't need stinking words. Where we're going, we don't need words, to paraphrase Doc. So.
Just magic and masks. I guess probably forgot to mention that in the under, using your mask as a player, you have certain button combinations that you could take your mask off, and you could light it on fire, and then dependent on what gestures you do after that, you can conjure stuff, and then you start combining, and the recipe's ladder. And another way that the players can communicate is like through snapping. So that's really like the only like noise the player can make, unless you're like shooting off fireworks or something. But okay, I think it's time. We're gonna reset the board. We're gonna rotate. We're gonna flip some panels, and I'm gonna try to have Jacob bring up Haylee, Soren, and Katelyn. Thank you so much, James, G, Sophie, and Whitton. So,
Thank you.
clean up on aisle 7. Haylee, Soren, Katelyn. Oh my gosh, there you are. Wait, we're missing one more. Come on, Katelyn. There's Katelyn. All right. So to kind of keep talking about the way that like players are seen and have their presence felt, I know some of you had very complicated systems for remembering repeat visitors to the Under. So let's talk about that.
It's not that complicated. For me, it was just a pen and paper.
I didn't. And the people that would keep coming back, I would start to recognize. And at the beginning of the Under, we had weekly shifts. And so we would be performing at the same time every week. And so I knew Saturday mornings at 8 a.m. Yes, I did this 8 a.m. every Saturday morning for almost a year. And so I knew kind of who I would be hanging out with. And I think it was primarily the European crowd that would join in. And then some very gun-ho East Coasters. I sure as hell hope it wasn't any West Coasters in a VR headset at 8 a.m. But you start to learn the flow pattern of the audience themselves. And on my like Thursday night shift that ended at 10 p.m., you know, like I knew who I was hanging out with at 10 p.m. And so through that consistency, we learned who was consistent with us. Yeah.
So I was one of the people who had a big ass spreadsheet. Yes. So one of my big projects in the Under was this thing called the Sweepers Union. So it was a way to sort of build community and bring players together and stuff like that. And there was just a lot of people who did things, and they were all important. And so when they got initiated, I needed to know who was a sweeper. So when I went back in the next time, I could be like, hey, you help me with this part of the union, you know, fighting for those because there's so much sand in the Under. We have so much to sweep. Oh, it's such a job. And so I not only did I make a big spreadsheet, like keeping track of all the lovely union babies, but I also built this big document for the rest of the cast to join in on the sweeper union story. Because it utilized one of the avatars that was more gender neutral that was available, which was the skeleton. So it was able to be like skeletons, like we're all together and we're fighting to keep our bones because the sand has disintegrated us down. I mean, the way that we could justify like our setting and the atmosphere and put that into our storytelling, it was a challenge, but it was freaking delicious. And the players and the fans, like they just yes-anded us every single time. Like I don't think there was anything that they, you know, sometimes they're like, that was an interesting choice. And you're like, yes, I tried something and you were there for that, appreciate it. But they were just so full of love. And I really think in this, with the community, I think with this being one of the first multi-platform live actor, live person games, there was a moral responsibility for me to be an example and to showcase kindness and welcoming and love to everyone who came in, because video games can be really, you know, lots of people like to throw things at you and test, you know, and they're experimenting and they're figuring things out. But there was a sense of like, hey, I'm a real person and I care about you because you're here and that matters because we're telling stories together. But we're both real people, and you know, there's lots of other games that you can go shoot people in the head or whatever you want to do. But like, we're real. So why don't we do something more interesting than murder? But we also did some fun murder too, because why not? Yes.
Yeah, so I remember when the game first launched, it was like late November. The actors were only supposed to hang around for a couple of months. Like I remember thinking to myself, oh no, the original live actor run date is going to end at the end of March. And well, we all know what happened March last year. And then the actors ended up staying on for way longer than the original plan. So a couple of things here. How did the behavior and attitude and like feeling the audience change over time? And then how often do you get to play like the same character for like a year, right? Like I feel like that doesn't really happen, especially in live immersive theater.
May I answer? So the audience grew exponentially in March, and all of a sudden we were there more often, they were there more often, and I think some like really cool magic happened. And what's really interesting about playing a character for well over a year, and one in a show where you don't do the same show every single night, because I've done that before. I have played the same character 7 shows a week for 2.5 years, and you get really deep and you get into some really amazing stuff with that character. But progressing a character, and as Katelyn was just saying, the yes and yes and yes and, like, your character lives a life you did not expect was even possible. And it's pretty cool to see what just flows naturally, and you are at the helm of that character ship, but it's the players or the audience members, the participants, the guests, whatever we want to call you, that are actually the ones like giving the directions, like make a left here, make a right there, kind of. So that wherever our characters have gone, it's due to collaboration with the audience, which was super cool. And I've never experienced anything like that before.
My pitch for how to do this over a year is to treat it like you're posting on Instagram instead of like you're in a theater show. So I just like, consume stuff and then like just dump it out onto the stage like all the time, all year, no matter where I am. So like I traveled a lot over quarantine, and I would like do my sessions I signed up for like in different parts of the country. And so I like made what I was doing part of it. That's like, I don't know, one way to work on the same thing for a year is to make sure you're in a bunch of different places. I could keep talking on that.
Well, I'm also curious how your approach to acting kind of changed over time, because when we were talking to some of the other groups, they were saying it was more structured at first and then eventually became looser.
I'm not sure it was ever. I don't know if I ever had the structured experience that I've heard other people have, but I had great, like, I'm gonna do this, cool, and then they're like, yeah, go for it. It was like a very self-generated for me, and I feel like that's like the tasty, like meaty part of it, is having all of this like space to roam around and make up stuff, and even like treat an encounter like a rehearsal. So I would like do like a bad version of what I was gonna do really good 4 times later. And I think players were good at realizing like, oh, it's okay, he's doing his thing again. Like it's a time warp world. It doesn't really matter if we see the same thing 4 times, because it has to be slightly different, just because you're in a different place. Like either me physically, the actor, is in a different place, or within the very large in virtual world, I could be in a different place,
Okay. It was a challenge. Oh my gosh. It was like acting with, if you had more hands, all of them tied behind your back, because one, you can never, so many tools, you can't check like the temperature, you don't have feedback, you can't read expressions. It's so I learned, it was like, oh, I'm gonna have to work off myself. I'm gonna have to like let myself get triggered by myself, and use that and use these players as sort of a supportive cast and an ensemble of whatever this improv long form that we're going on today, whatever we're exploring. But I think the one of the big challenges was spatial awareness, because I want to pick up a thing and feel its weight if someone throws something. It's so trying to embody that when you hit back or you're holding something, like players can make things gold, and so it was like, how do I make sure that this is heavy, I need to make sure this is really really believably a feat. But it was, I loved it. I loved it so much. It challenged me in every single way. And I can't thank the players for trusting me to, trusting all of us to, just make fun and explore. And because we all were freaking babies. We could be like, we knew what we were doing. No, we didn't. But I've definitely grown as a storyteller, as a collaborator, as just being able to take different cues and different information from lots of different sources. But ultimately, what I'm most excited about from this VR is that I've been asked, does it feel like theater, like acting, performance-wise? Does it actually feel like live physical theater? And I have to say, yeah, weirdly it does. And I am surprised by that as well. But I feel the intimacy when I feel when I have a sprite in front of me and we're having a hug, I feel like I'm hugging you. I'm hugging you with my energy, even though I'm grasping for air and I'm seeing your little black cloak over your shoulder. It was a lot and very beautiful. And I'm sad.
But I think I can speak for a lot of us. We're sad that it's over, but we're thrilled, delighted, excited that this happened at all. I saw some of the questions in the chat around how this was, this is a custom platform. This is a game with multiple parts. The actors, you all had your own interface where you could do all of the scene changes and teleportations and magic that the players couldn't see, and everyone was all networked. And I remember looking for you all, and it was serendipitous for the longest time, because you had no idea when you signed on if there was an actor, who you were going to find, what character or scene you might stumble into. And so sometimes you might not find an actor, and then other times you'd hear someone singing far off in the distance, and you would have to go and find them. So there's that sense of discovery. So did it still feel like you were discovering new things all the time?
Yes, especially when there was an update and we would receive, an email from the producer or Danny or Samantha saying, there's an update, look out for these things. And so you get into the game and the regular players have already figured out everything, and so they take you on a tour and show you the new update because you haven't had time to go and play. Anybody else? Katelyn, Soren? Yeah. Yeah, so like I said, the players guided so much, and we were kind of just in a different avatar to facilitate that direction, kind of similar to how when you see kids playing on a playground, you're just oh, that looks good, just don't hit each other and go this way. Okay, we're good now. So it was facilitated
play. I would say the players taught us. I know we learned a handful of spells before, so we could go in and teach the new people spells, but it was only a matter of days, and they had us beat. I was looking at the spreadsheet. I was how do you make a frisbee? Oh my god! But I think the funniest thing, I didn't know that so there's a spell in the game. It's weird and it's one of my favorites. But you can make a severed thumb, just a floating thumb that you can carry around and do what you want with. I didn't know the spell existed. One day when I was playing with people, and I think I was working behind the bar, or doing a silent character bartender type thing, interacting people, playing with the music on stage, and somebody came up with two, because you use enlargement spells, two giant severed thumbs, and we're holding them in both hands, and then they use those thumbs to try to pick up a martini glass, like a pair of chopsticks, on the bar, and I lost it. I had to take my headset off because I was just gasping. I was but they would do shit like that. I was just I'm keeping that forever, you brilliant mofo. God.
All right. amazing. Thank you so much for sharing, Katelyn. I think we need to make sure we get to everybody in time. So we're going to unpin you and we're going to bring up Stephanie, Dasha, and Deirdre. That's Stephanie, Dasha, and Deirdre to the Lost and Found. Just kidding. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Soren, Haylee, and Katelyn. So yeah, let's keep moving and grooving. I think to maybe build off what Katelyn was talking about, the most memorable moment that happened in the Under, the thing that will probably remain with you for like the rest of your acting days. I know it's a pretty hard question.
I guess there was a day and Katelyn actually was there because I was sobbing my eyes out because of a unrelated other job issue. Was extremely emotional and like I was like, I gotta go in my headset and do things that are completely unrelated and like do a dance class as a bossy Russian. I made a story with my character Vicky the cat that I had gotten in a lot of trouble with the MC, and I created a circumstance that for me that would help me get through that shift because I was just very emotional and very upset, and I was like, okay, I should use Vicky because she gets sad really easily, and I had a few encounters and I was literally sobbing in my headset telling this random player who was like brand new, like about how I was in trouble. And I was like, I could tell with their body language that they could hear how real the tears were. And they just went on this like walk with me and like, they were like petting me because I'm a cat, that character. And they were giving me scratchies and like, I don't know who they weren't even a regular player, but they I don't know. That was something that had never really happened before because usually as an actor you're supposed to leave it at the door, kind of, and this was a time that I realized that I could it was okay and I could use it and created an experience for someone else that was probably better than me pretending like it didn't exist and just trying to, kind of distract myself and not be as focused. So that was something memorable.
Dasha, I'm going to go off of that. I was a small crab character, HS, usually playing hide and go seek. But I saw that there was one sprite that was in the workshop by themselves, and they were in the workshop for a long time. In this workshop, you can create your own mask, and it's tough when you're in that workshop to try to create it by yourself. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to go hang out with that sprite. And as HS, we're not going to play hide and go seek. I'm just going to assist them and encourage them to make their mask. They were having such a tough time, and they're able to emote. So you can see them like dejected, throwing down their hands in their head and just hanging. And then as HS, encouraging them not to give up and, it's okay. We're going to do this together. We spent about 25 minutes. They finally made the mask. Later on, I found out it's somebody I know in real life, but I had no idea that they were this sprite. I found out through another cast member that this person had a really hard day and how much that meant to them. And then to have like that mind-blowing serendipitous moment of like, oh, it's a person I know in real life. I'm so happy I got to be there for them. Regardless if I knew them in real life, those moments are really, really important that you can do that inside of a video game.
And if anyone's not seeing the chat, the person has unmasked themselves and is in the audience today.
Oh.
So, oh my
Hi,
gosh,
friend.
such
I'm
serendipity.
so glad, like that. Yeah, that will stick with me for a very long time.
It's beautiful. I mean, there's so many. Oh my God, how could you ask a question like this? There was like the time that we were, when the mayoral election was going on. There was the time that, there was the time we were doing, crops giving. There was the time that, it was one of the sprites' birthday and they always wanted to be Puck. So we did the entire Midsummer Night's Dream. There was so many. There's the one time when so I have a character named Francine, and she's a bit of it. She came about because I was I was doing this gig for Harley Quinn. It was the launch party, and they wanted all of the Harley Quinns. They had like, I don't know, 20 of us Harley Quinns all dressed up like Harley Quinn to try to do a New York accent, right? So I made her just to practice a New York accent, but I came very attached to this particular character. And one of her boyfriend was like a player who was in there all the time, and it was a friend of mine, and so that was her boyfriend. And then she had this big story about how there was this drama with the MC, and then there was her sister, and they were supposed to be performing together, but then the MC wanted Francine to go off on her own and do her own act, and her sister got mad and sent her away, and she wandered off, and I hadn't seen her again. So this was going on for almost a year, about how I wish I'd seen my sister. I miss my sister so much, and like on and on. And then finally, this particular player, who's like a friend of mine, who is also the Francine's boyfriend, was like, I'd really like to see you guys get together. And I was like, oh, that's kind of got to happen now that we're wrapping up. So I asked Whitton to come in and be her, and we had this scene where Masha searched psychically for Lucretia and brought her back, and then they reunited, and Francine said, I'm sorry, I wasn't going to abandon you, and she said, I got lost in the desert and I couldn't get back, and we were crying, and there was like all these time sprites around us trying to comfort us, and it was just like, and we're just like, I didn't even realize that moment was going to be so powerful until we did it. And then after we did it, I was like, oh, wow, it was beautiful. It was just beautiful.
I will say one other random thing that happened was we didn't get a Halloween last Halloween, and as immersive performers, we're all usually like in a immersive haunt or something, and we were so some of us teamed up. We made essentially like a delusion it was like Inception, like immersive haunt, called the Spooky Dome, or like the haunted house, with a bunch of us, and it just, oh my god, it made that day. I was going to be so sad that day, and it was so much fun to be able to just do that instead, and it really felt like we did an immersive haunt that night. And the other thing that I just wanted to mention was one time we did, during the variety hour rather, this was one of the funniest moments I think that ever happened for me, was I was saying this like ridiculous version of Swan Lake, and brought the players up to dance with me, and I was making them do ridiculous like Swan Lake dance moves and stuff, and I made one of them the bad bird, like I would like cast them as like the evil bad bird, and they had to be like killing us, and then we had the egg that we were supposed to protect, and we were all like circling around the egg, and then someone just leans down too far and ate the egg accidentally. And just there's so many moments in this where like something would just happen and everyone in the room, including the actors, would just freaking lose it. Like there were so many moments of pure just joy, hilariousness, that was another one.
Dasha, I just want to, like, the birth of the kittens. So Dasha had a character that was a cat, and many of us got to participate and be her kittens, and the sprites got to be around for the birth of these beautiful babies.
That whole storyline happened because they were like, oh wait, it's not over, guys, we got more months for you, and we were like, we were just thinking, we were writing our kittens. I was like, let's do this, guys, who wants to be a kitten?
So I think it it was supposed to end in March, and it didn't, and they were supposed to end in the summer, and you had all like planned like codas and epilogues for your characters, and then you got extended.
Multiple times this happened, so it was a great way. And I mean, the first time I think some of us were like, oh, but then afterwards you were like, okay, why don't we make an ending that could just not be an ending?
Amazing. So I guess it sounds like being a part of this experience has changed a lot of you significantly. So what do you think you're going to take from this moving forward?
Well, I'll jump on that one because it's been an amazing ride. In fact, I remember I came in on the second casting, and I remember calling Dasha on my way to Thanksgiving, and I was like, "What is this thing you're in? Can you tell me? I'm like, I think I got." So I was like, and she was kind enough to like lay it all out for me because I had an audition, and I was like, wanted to know more, and I'd randomly gotten the audition because I'd reached out because I saw all my friends, like, well, of the picture of the first cast was like half of them I knew. I was like, what is this? I remember watching the trailer and I was like, what is this thing? I don't understand it. And I was like, Dasha, what is this? And she was like telling me all about, this thing, and cut to like, it led me to finding Pandora X. And then that led me to starting a virtual reality theater company with some of the players with who were with some of the players that were in the underpresents and some of the players that were players in the underpresents. So like a group of us have teamed up together, and we are making our third production of a VR product, a VR production, and we did Para as sort of like a can we do this, and then Krampusnacht was kind of like we can do this. It's like it's getting bigger and it's happening. And now our third production, Welcome to Respite, which we teamed up with Coact, we are going to be premiering at a very major festival this coming summer. So it's led to a whole creative outlet that we're so excited about, and that there's such an immersive quality to VR that anybody can do this. I mean, as long as you have a headset, you can go into Altspace or VR chat, find a world, write a story about it, and start doing shows from that level. Or you can go to Altspace and use the world tool builder tools there because they're not that hard to build a space. And then all of a sudden you can make your show there. Or if you know a little bit of Unity or Blender and those kinds of things, you can do something in VR chat. So it's just like, it's accessible for everyone. And I hope to see you all there doing stuff with me and our stuff, doing stuff.
I think for me, the biggest takeaway is so much more confidence in my skills as a writer of narrative and branch narrative, because I've always had a lot of ideas in the pieces that I've been in, but I haven't really been just given and forced to have the opportunity to develop, write, and be the boss of that stuff. And you could just tell what would work, what wouldn't work, because of just so much time in there to really test stuff out. So I feel like it was just like a constant beta test for me in terms of learning how to write branch narrative, and just I think that's for me, and just the potential in this form. Like, I think this needs to exist again in this world or in another virtual world, or in just, I know it's existed in like LARP and in other, it's not like the first time that this kind of thing has ever happened with like a long interactive storyline with many characters, but it would be really great if it was in VR with really cool avatars like we got to embody. So yeah.
For me, confidence and my improv and writing, just upgrading my skill level, and then also confidence in embracing the weird and the odd and allowing my stories to go there, where it's like you don't have to be safe to tell a good story. Sometimes it's better to go big.
Awesome. So I'm definitely going to try to break Zoom and spotlight every single person. Let's see if we can get all of you up on stage. Sadly, we are running out of time. Oh no, How do I do this? Am I clicking on the wrong things? Did I spotlight too many people, Jacob? I'm sorry.
We have maxed out the spotlight, says your voice from the sky.
Dang
Let's
it.
break Zoom.
That's okay. I did break Zoom because the awesomeness of the people in this room cannot be contained. But
Tell you what, I'm gonna remove all spotlights and let's everyone go to gallery view.
all right, let's go to gallery view, because this is what we do in Immersive. We pivot, we are scrappy, and we're going to force this technology to our will. Thank you all so much for being here today, Brandon and Michael and Karlie and Terence and James and Sophie and G and Whitton and Haylee and Soren and Kaylee and Stephanie and Dasha and Deirdre. Thank you all so much. Amazing to be able to have you all here with us today. I think I can say for many of these people in this room, we love you and we appreciate you so much. Snaps all around.
We love you guys.
Love you so much.
Love you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh,
For
thank you guys so much.
Thank you for the love. Thank you for all of it.
Thank you. 5,000.
Thank you guys.
I love the stuff. You guys are amazing. Amazing people, amazing times.
We never could have
see
imagined
everybody.
the incredible community that came up around this game. I don't think any of us, I'm like crying, so just excuse me.
Yeah.
That any of us could have imagined it. Thank you all so much. It's changed, I think, all of our lives. It certainly changed me as a performer. Probably one of the highlights of my career. I remember telling my mother when I was little, I want to do something that changes the world. And I think I can safely say that this has. So thank you all so much.
Yes, snap.
Snaps, right, snaps.
Awesome. Well, I hope as many of you as possible can join us for the after party in the Discord. We're going to have some games. We're going to have some VR world hops that are also accessible on desktop PC as well as Quest. We're going to have some DJing stuff happening. Plus, we've got more content going on in terms of a couple of Clubhouse sessions later today and more programming tomorrow. So the fling is not yet over. Let's keep on having some fun, all right?
That's good.